Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. 2 elderly Karens demand my leftover food. After that, am I the jerk for evicting a tenant because they got pregnant? And after that, entitled mom and her brat almost get me arrested over a Nintendo DS. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, 1 Karen gets arrested. I haven't even done anything! So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. 2 elderly Karens demand my leftover food. I have a slight eating problem. Some days I'm not able to eat much, but I still go out to cafes to try to eat. Sometimes I'm able to finish the small dishes that I order, and sometimes I can't even get halfway through. I also eat quite slowly. For this reason, I often like to eat alone. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a cafe and spent about an hour eating, but I couldn't finish half of my food. There were 2 older ladies, grandma age, sitting at a table near to me, and they asked me if they could take the rest of my food for the street cats to eat. I was in Istanbul, which in Istanbul, there are a lot of street cats and a culture of people feeding the street cats, which is a very nice thing. I said to the women, yes, of course, and I gave them my leftover food. Fast forward to a few days later, and I go to the same cafe again. The same 2 grandmas are sitting at the same table next to me where I had sat down, and I said, hello, but only one of them bothered to reply. I ordered my food and started to eat. Today was a slow eating day for me, and I wasn't sure if I would be able to finish. I spent about an hour trying to eat again. While I was eating, I noticed that the only thing the grandmas had on their table was a glass of water with only a few sips left in it. I also noticed that they kept watching me and eyeing up my food. After over half an hour, I noticed that they had reoriented their chairs so that they were now looking directly at me. It started to make me feel uncomfortable, and being watched made it even harder for me to eat. The 2 grandmas still only had an almost empty glass of water on their table. At this point, I really felt like I was being watched. After about an hour, I decided that I couldn't eat anymore and I was going directly home after, so I asked the waiter to put the rest of my food in a takeaway box. The moment the 2 grandmas saw that I was finished, one asked me if they could have my leftover food for the street cats, and the other lady asked the waiter to give them my leftover food. This confirmed what I had thought. These ladies had stayed at their table for an extra hour while ordering nothing from the cafe, feeling entitled enough to watch me eat for an hour and then take the rest of my food. If this isn't entitlement, then I don't know what is. And as soon as the waiter told the 2 ladies that I had asked for a doggy bag, leftover food bag, and that I was taking the rest of my food home, the 2 ladies immediately stood up and left the cafe. Not only did they make me very uncomfortable, but they took up a valuable table which the cafe could have had other customers at for a whole hour, while the ladies ordered nothing and consumed nothing for an hour. Because of what's going on right now and cafes not being able to take in the same amount of customers they used to be able to, they lost business for a whole hour because 2 ladies wanted to sit there and watch me eat for an hour and then entitled themselves to my food. I was thinking about telling the cafe what had happened, but in the end, I didn't bother. Instead, I'm writing on Reddit to share my story of 2 entitled ladies. If I go to the same cafe and the same 2 ladies are there, I'll have to go and sit in another cafe. Well, what would you do? Would you give Karen your leftover food or not? Please let us know. You better. Karen's gotta eat too. Am I the jerk for evicting a tenant because they got pregnant? Yes, I know, the title sounds awful, but please do hear me out before making a judgment. I will accept whatever judgment I'm given. I, 30 male, purchased a 3-bedroom condo in Toronto, Canada 5 years ago when I was in my 2nd year of medical residency. Soon after the purchase, I rented one of the rooms to my roommate, female 29, to offset the costs of the mortgage. I live in one room, she lives in the second, and the third is my study/office. She has been a great roommate from the beginning. We aren't necessarily friends, as in we don't do things together for fun, but we get along exceptionally well. The entire roommate/tenant relationship has gone swimmingly up until recently. A couple of weeks ago, my roommate broke the news to me that she is pregnant. The father was a fling of hers who does not want anything to do with the kid. The roommate has decided she wants to keep the kid anyways and raise it on her own. To me, that seemed like a huge challenge and I admire her for it. The issue is, while I don't necessarily dislike kids, I have no desire to live with a baby. While the condo is a fair size, I will most definitely be woken up by the babies crying at night. My condo is also where I like to come home to and relax, like a haven after a long workday, and the idea of coming home to a baby honestly seems absolutely chaotic, especially since this isn't my own kid, i.e., one that my girlfriend and I decided to have / were mentally prepared for. As difficult as it was for me to do this, I told her essentially what I've written here and that it would be best if she finds somewhere else to live. I'm not rushing her out or anything like that. I've given her a 6-month notice, since any later than that would come too close to the birth. She was honestly quite taken aback by this and thought that I was being cruel. Her primary concern is that rent has gone up substantially in this city since she signed on with me. I haven't increased her rent since she moved in, so she's essentially paying 2015 rent. She works as a waitress and will likely need to find a lesser apartment to keep within the same budget. A couple of other considerations are that she was out of work while restaurants were closed, but I did waive her rent for that period. All of the furniture is also mine, aside from her bedroom, so she would need to figure something out on that front as well, aside from all of the kids' expenses. I understand her position, and I feel horrible about the situation, but I honestly can't do it. Am I the jerk for this? Edit. Thank you to everyone who has commented. There have been 2 great suggestions on how I can make this situation better, which I have taken to heart. I haven't been able to give life much thought lately, as work has been quite busy. Firstly, I have a friend in real estate, and I'm going to see if they can help her try to find some affordable listings. Secondly, as I don't plan to take on another tenant after her and can afford to do this anyway, I have decided I'm going to waive her rent for the remainder of the tenancy. This will hopefully give her a bit of a boost to get on her feet. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Entitled Mom and her brat almost get me arrested over a Nintendo DS. I was talking with my friend about this experience and he told me to post it here. So enjoy my experience about me and this unbelievable Karen. First of all, I need to say that English isn't my first language, so there might be some grammar errors. Forgive me about it. This took place last year in the end of summer while I was waiting for my flight in the airport after a vacation with my family in Italy. The airport was pretty empty that day, despite it was supposed to be traffic due to a big amount of people coming back from vacations. Anyway, I was playing with my Nintendo to kill some time since my flight was late, and I wanted to preserve my phone battery. I forgot my power bank at home. So me, 20, was quietly playing when this woman, who looked like she was 40, and her son, who was probably about 10 judging by his height, got in front of me and started complaining about the flights being late and that she had business, etc. I stopped listening to her because I put on my earphones in an attempt to escape her complaining about this and that. I can't stand listening to people complain. Time passes and a notice comes out from the speakers saying that my flight was going to be delayed again. Sighing, I put back in my earphones and that's the moment where the show starts. Entitled Mom comes at me with her kid and asks me something. I remove my earphones and the conversation goes like this. Entitled Mom: "Excuse me?" Me: "Yes? Do you need something, ma'am?" "Yes. Please, you see, my kid is getting very bored here. So I wondered if you could let him borrow your video game so he can relax until our flight starts." Nothing wrong till here, but you see, I don't trust random kids, since anytime I've let them borrow something, they return it to me scratched, smudged, or even broken. So it was a, "No, I'm sorry," for the little brat. The moment I said no, things started escalating. The tone of this lady changed from polite to arrogant, and the volume had risen, and the kid, who was giving me puppy eyes, started to give me stink eyes. Entitled Mom: "But why? You're not a kid anymore. You look like you're 25 or something, and you still play video games? Why don't you give that toy to my son so he can use it? You don't need it at all." To be honest, if the kid would have promised to use it near me and return it to me intact, I could have given up and let him play. But he was a kid after all, and I know that they become nervous if they don't have anything to do for a while. But the very moment Entitled Mom started speaking arrogantly, she lost any hope with me. Me: "Listen, ma'am, I don't let people borrow my stuff if they're strangers, for a matter of principle. So, even if you are some famous person, my answer would still be no. Plus, I recommend you lower your voice, because people are watching us." I didn't really check if people were watching us, but it was clear by listening to the volume of her voice that anyone who would have heard this would have been looking at us. Entitled Mom: "Well," raising her voice, "I don't care if people are watching us. Even better, cause this way, everyone will know how selfish and how childish you are, not letting a kid borrow your stupid video game." The conversation was getting out of hand. I could feel the glares of the strangers in the airport looking at me, thinking I'm some sort of a monster. And instead of saying anything that could worsen the situation, I decided to keep calm and just go on. Me: Ma'am, the only one acting childish here is you. Lower your voice before someone calls security on you.
The security will be called on you for being an absolute jerk. And when they arrive, I will have that stupid video game of yours confiscated, you little jerk.
I was starting to lose patience, and I quietly say, almost grinding my teeth and still not moving from my seat, "Me, this conversation is over. Please leave and don't show your face near me again, for your sake." I know that sounded like a threat, but the reaction was as cringe as hilarious. Entitled Mom.
Oh, you threatening me? Oh, you are so messed up. I'm going to report you for this.
I thought the conversation was going to end and that she was going to complain to the manager or something. Typical things that Karens do. It was my first time dealing with a Karen. Everything could be fine as long as she would leave me alone, but the real heck starts now. While I was putting my earphones back in, the lady snatched them from me, and while I was going to say something, the little jerk did something that changed forever my view about kids. In short, he came closer and spit in my shirt. I started seeing red.
Me, you little...
I say while I try to move away from the brat with my leg, not trying to kick him or anything. Entitled Mom.
Don't you dare hurt him.
After that sentence, she tries to slap me, but I grab her by her arm promptly before her hand could reach my face. If she had succeeded in slapping me, I swear, I would have done something that I would have regret for years to come. She starts screaming for help, and someone starts moving in our way in an attempt to stop what's going on. But that wasn't necessary, because the little excuse for a human does something that I didn't even think kids were capable of. He punched me in the jewels. That kid was fully aware of the weak point of a male, yet he did it. Unbelievable. The pain does little except fuel the rage that was boiling in me. I must say, I am a very patient person and all, but when I lose it, I don't have any self-control, so it always ends bad, and that was going to end very bad for both me and them. I stand up from the chair and push away the woman when her and her son start demonstrating their impressive acting skills. She rolls on the floor screaming, and the little jerk has the courage to fake a cry while several people were getting closer. I was confused, enraged, and shocked. I've never dealt with someone who could be so shameless. I was literally speechless and frozen in place with my fists closed, in pain from the punch I received in the jewels. While standing still, looking at the pathetic show they were giving, I feel someone grabbing my hands and handcuffing me. It was the security guard who clearly misunderstood and judged by the last scene. He then escorted me to a white room with nothing but a table and started asking me questions after I calmed down. Everything I answered to those questions was, "Check the camera registration and you'll see." I was frustrated and angered. I didn't want to say anything at all, but I was thankful at the guard too for removing me from that place before I could get my hands on them. Something like 20 minutes passes, and the guard comes back and hands me a bottle of water. He was an understanding person after all, luckily. "Guard, you can go, and forgive me for the cuffs. Your suitcases are in the other room. Would you like to press charges?" I didn't want that jerk's money. I just wanted to go back home without further complications, so I refused, but I had to take a final satisfaction before taking my flight. The speakers announced that my flight was ready, so before I go, I reach out to the Karen and her kid, who were near the seat that I was sitting at earlier, like nothing had happened. I grab her kid by the shoulder and say, "I think this belongs to you. You need this more than I do," I say while bringing out the Nintendo. The moment I bring out the console, the little jerk's eyes became like a cat's eyes when they're in the dark, and his mother grinned in satisfaction as she thought about obtaining what she wanted. Little did she know, before handing it to him, I snapped it in 2 pieces, and I got a taste of their shocked faces. I dumped the broken console on the ground as I took my leave, hearing their muttering as I left. It was the worst experience of my life, and made me discover that kids can be horrible too. When I think about it, I get overwhelmed with anger and disappointment. But then I think about the sweet revenge. I still can't believe it, and when I read that there are other similar people, my feels go to whoever has to deal with these people. P.S. For those wondering if breaking the console was worth it, yes, it was very old anyway, and all the saved data was on the R4, so I had no problem breaking it. Am I the jerk for making a box of things my partner can't touch? I'm 20, female, and my partner, who's 24, male, loses everything. You hand him a $100 bill, walk away for 5 minutes, he's digging through everything trying to find it. It's kinda cute sometimes, but other times, it really gets on my nerves. Today, 2 things got on my nerves bad. Thing number 1, I have one very specific lighter that was my parents' last gift to me before they separated. It's a refillable one with a custom case on it. I always set it in the same place after using it. This morning, I get up to smoke and it's gone. I flip our whole apartment upside down before calling him in a panic. He tells me he used it this morning, but can't find it in the car and he has to get to work. If this thing is lost for good, I'm gonna freak. Thing number 2, I have lupus and early stage rheumatoid arthritis, and my meds are just gone. I know he took an allergy pill this morning and took everything out of the medicine cabinet. Now, my 2 most important medications and an as-needed sleeping med are nowhere to be found. I got fed up, so I ran over to the dollar store and got a box and put a few other important things in there. I sent him a picture and said, once I find my lighter and my medications, everything in this box isn't to be touched. He texted me back saying how it was humiliating that I even went and did that I'm overreacting and I'm being a bully to him for something he isn't doing intentionally. His best friend, whom he works with, has now also texted me saying I'm making a big deal of nothing. So Reddit, am I the jerk for setting aside a box of things that he isn't allowed to touch due to him losing incredibly important items of mine? ETA, I oversimplified my text to him in that post because it was actually kind of long and I don't want my post to be too long. What I actually said was as follows. Hey love, your phone is probably off, but on break, we can talk about this. I know you didn't mean to misplace my stuff, but unfortunately, this time it's a sentimental item and medications that determine my functionality. So I feel like we have to have some kind of solution here. It's not ideal, as I like that we share most things, but this has become more serious. I ran to the dollar store and picked up this box, and I want you to know now, if it's in this box, it is incredibly important and cannot be lost. So please don't touch it unless I ask you to. Besides this, I hope you're having a lovely day obtaining that grain, and I believe my dad is bringing you lunch today. Love you. ETA 2. Since it's the most commonly asked question, I'll address it directly in the post. He's not officially diagnosed with an attention disorder, but I have higher functioning ADHD and have noticed a considerable amount of my own symptoms in his mannerisms and behaviors. I only haven't brought it up because 1, he doesn't have insurance at the moment, and 2, I try not to bring up potential diagnoses as my mom was a bit of a pill pusher with me and it feels almost like a violation of myself when I do it to other people. However, a local clinic does free mental health screenings and we will be going to get him evaluated on Saturday. Thank God they're open on Saturdays. Update. Alrighty, internet. Here's where things are sitting now after a 20-minute phone call. As soon as I answer the phone, he's apologizing. He found the lighter in his jacket pocket and my meds are, in fact, behind the toilet. He will be retrieving them when he gets home and has offered me a back rub. I have accepted this offer. I ask why he got defensive with me. He apologizes again and says he has just gotten to work and was already running late, and the stress of being late combined with being called out just irritated him for a minute. He wanted to text back and apologize as soon as he clocked in, but cell phones aren't allowed on the floor, which I knew. His friend texted me because he has received a brief explanation as to why my partner is flustered and irritable with little to no detail. He actually thinks the box is a really good idea and suggests we have one for every room. More apologizing, and then I hear his boss call him over, so he has to go. I love yous, and we hung up. It was a misunderstanding early in the morning after a stressful start. I'm fine with the result of the phone call. The pieces of the story pie fit together, and we're gonna be okay. He's surprisingly not out to get me and take my stuff out of spite. Who'da thunk it? I was a literal slave at McDonald's. This story takes place smack dab in the middle of the recession a few years ago. I had just lost my job and couldn't find something else, so I applied for welfare after my savings dried up. I live in the Netherlands, so the job center will sometimes put you on a learn-to-work trajectory where you do unpaid internship for your unemployment check, which was below minimum wage. I was completely on board with this and expected to be placed somewhere I could really learn something. Too bad it was McDonald's. Now keep in mind, I was not paid by them. They had no investment in me working there. Yet, for some reason, I was treated worse than anyone there. In what ways? Well, I'll make a handy list for you. 1. No clocking out for extra breaks. While the other employees were allowed to clock out when there was nothing to do, I was kept at the counter at all times that wasn't my 20-minute lunch break. They did this because they were paying them and not me. Putting me on break would mean someone that is getting paid is sitting at the empty counter instead, and that costs money. So no clock out breaks. 2. No dreaming. One day it was really quiet, so while the others were on their clock out breaks, I was told to clean the trays. I didn't mind that much, just listening to the radio, washing some trays, just zoning out for a minute. But then I hear my manager yelling at me from the counter, "OP, no daydreaming!" To which I instinctively responded, "This is where dreams come to die." This earned me having to come over and receive a long spiel about motivation and work ethic. Keep in mind, I wasn't being paid. 4. No coming in 30 seconds late. Yes, you read that right. I had to ride a bike to work, and I ran a bit late because of headwinds and heavy rain. I managed to clock in at what I thought was still on time, but when I was called to the office to explain why I was 30 seconds late and that I should manage my time better. Some people came in a few minutes late, but they were never reprimanded because they were paid. If they come in late, they're not getting paid for that entire hour anyway. But I was free labor, so they needed me to clock in at least 15 minutes before the shift starts in case it was busy. 5. No accidents. One morning, I had left my apartment for work. To get to the street, I need to go down a flight of concrete stairs. It had been raining again, and I slipped, landing on the steps with my back. I really got hurt. My father was a paramedic, and he taught me to never take chances when it comes to your back, and to always have it checked out immediately. After I had crawled back upstairs, I decided to call my job before having my boyfriend take me to the ER. What would your response be if an employee said they had slipped and fell on their back? Down concrete stairs. Oh no, get well soon. That must have hurt. No, what I got was, your shift started 10 minutes ago, and now you're not showing up at all? Which wasn't even true. My shift started at 9:30 and I called in at 9:25, but because I was told to come in 15 minutes early, they counted that as the starting point of my shift. When I told them I was going to the ER because I was in pain, they asked, "You're still showing up tomorrow, right?" At that point, I was bawling because of the pain and stress, so my boyfriend took the phone from me and told them we'll let them know before hanging up. Later that day, the ER doctor said I had a bad sprain and that I did the right thing coming there. I wore a brace, but felt better fairly soon and was back to work the next day. 6. No free drinks. I don't know what the deal is at other McDonald's places, but at the place I worked, staff had their own soda fountain to get drinks from. This was free, except for me. I was only allowed to take water from the fountain and was told to write down my drinks and pay them at the end of the day. To get around this, I'd only tap drinks when no one was looking and took Sprite so no one would be able to tell I didn't just take water. 7. No self-sabotage. I had it with that place. I hated my life at this point and I didn't see a way out. I couldn't quit because I'd lose my unemployment pay. So I started sabotaging myself in order to get fired instead. So I became whiny about everything and everyone. I decided to become such a drag, they wouldn't even want me around for free. Why don't I get to clock out? Why do I still have to pay for soda? How come she was allowed to go to the bathroom and I'm not? Etc. When that didn't seem to do much, I decided to just slow down to a crawl. In case you don't know, every McDonald's register has a timer at the top of the screen that gives the counter people a time limit on when an order has to be delivered. So I made it my mission to get each and every order in the red. I went as slow as possible, kept asking questions when people were ordering, and just ran out the clock. I also stopped smiling, started sighing at everything the manager said, and just be hard to work with. Management was not happy, and after a while, I was finally scheduled for a performance talk. The owner went on and on about my bad attitude, how I really dropped the ball, and how I wasn't appreciating the fact they were willing to hire someone like me. For free, remember? For free. I just shrugged at everything and refused to give straight answers other than, "Well, you don't pay me." And then the moment came, the one I had been waiting for since day one. Those magic words I've been dreaming of. "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we'll have to let you go." Hallelujah! I was told to get my stuff and leave the premises. I was so unbelievably happy. I was being freed. 6 months of slave labor had finally come to an end. I didn't even bother changing out my uniform. I threw on my jacket and practically ran out. It was the greatest feeling I've ever experienced. And for those wondering if I lost my unemployment for being fired, I did not. And only 2 months later, I landed a new job that actually paid me for the next 2 years. So yeah, there's the story. If you're ever at a McDonald's and your server isn't being the nicest, ask yourself, is this person being paid? Because they might not be. Speaking of McDonald's, what's your favorite item at McDonald's? Please let us know.
I'd do anything for a McChicken right now.
The Pay It Forward chain. For the past 2 years, I've worked part-time as a cashier at a grocery store. I've been privy to several acts of kindness in the past, but there's one instance that really stood out to me as particularly rare. I remember it had been a fairly busy day, and I had already been at work for about 4 to 5 hours or so. I think it was one of those weird middle shift days because I don't remember closing the store that night. Regardless, I was in a good mood and looking forward to my break. I was scanning the items of a lady in line, making small talk and smiling, and generally trying to enjoy myself while making someone's day a bit brighter. She looked to be fairly young and seemed tired, but was kind and got about $15 worth of microwavable stuff. I finished bagging our groceries. All of our baggers were busy, which was nothing new, so I was trying to be efficient, and she stayed at the end of the register adjusting her purse and wallet after paying. Since she was taken care of, I started ringing up the gentleman behind her. I don't remember much about him other than the fact that he had quite a few small items and his total was about twice that of the lady before him. When he went to pay, the card reader gave him a chip error message. I directed him to try a few more times since our machines are pretty sensitive, and if the card is even a little smudged, it won't read it. Oftentimes, when a person rubs the card's chip between their fingers, it will work. Try that if you ever get the error message. However, when he tried it again, this time it registered as declined. He stepped away to call his bank, and I saved his order so that I could move on to the next person, but I was stopped by the lady who had yet to leave. "I'll pay for him," she said, and she still looked tired, kinda done with life, that kind of expression. I could see a bit of hesitation there, and the guy had stepped away, so I said, "Are you sure?" The total was about $30. Again, this was about twice what Tired Lady had paid for her own order. I remember that she kinda paused for a moment, but she nodded. So I recalled that saved order, and she paid for his items. I bagged them up, stuck the receipt inside one of the bags, and moved on to the next person in line. Tired Lady had just left the register when the guy came back with his card, and I got to tell him, "Your groceries are already paid for. The woman in front of you took care of it." I got a really weird look from this guy. He looked like I told him I was keeping a tiny man in the register to organize the change, or something equally ridiculous. He looked confused. "She did?" I nodded. Confused guy turned and looked at the guy behind him, then back at me. "Well, I guess I'll pay for him then." The dude behind him was not paying attention and had only gotten a few items, so I just sort of blinked at Confused guy and was like, "All right then." I finished scanning the items and Confused guy stuck in his card, which was approved. Guess he got his bank stuff worked out. About this time, Distracted guy realizes that I just handed him a receipt and is about to become Confused guy number 2. Before he can say anything, he's told, "The lady ahead of me paid for mine, so I'm just passing it on. Have a nice day." I'm just sort of standing there at that point, waiting to see what would happen next. Distracted guy thanked Confused guy and looked me dead in the eye and stated, "Well, I'm paying for hers then." This literally repeated 3 times down the line and only stopped because no one else entered the queue. The last woman who had her groceries paid for by the person in front of her was a mom of 2 kids, and she was floored when the guy paid her $60 bill. She flipped when I told her she was the 6th person in a pay-it-forward chain, and I had a great time telling my coworkers about it when I went on break. I feel like there's a lot of perceived peer pressure that is the incentive to be kind, and for a few of them, I certainly felt that vibe. But overall, it was just people paying it forward, and it was pretty cool. So thanks, Tired Lady. I hope you had a nice day after that, because you made a bigger impact than you realized. Karen loses it when I ask her to control her kid. I was talking to an old friend I haven't heard from in ages, and they brought up this story, so I thought I'd share it. I used to work at Dillard's, so I saw my fair share of entitled behavior from our customers, but this incident happened to my coworker. A customer was browsing around with her 4 to 5-year-old son. He was running around, knocking things off racks, etc. The mother made no effort to control him until he crashed into her a couple of times. She told him to go sit in one of the chairs by the dressing rooms. The chairs were pretty nice and upholstered in a silk-like fabric. My coworker was removing garments left in the changing rooms, and as she passed by the boy, she noticed he was pushing a small car, think Matchbox-style car, all over the back of the chair, and it was shredding the fabric. She spoke to him and asked him not to do that. He responded by blowing a raspberry at her and pushed the car with even more force. She went to the mother and said, "Your son is destroying the chair with his little car. Could you speak to him?" Which is way nicer than I would have put it. The mother stopped and stared at my coworker. They stood there just looking at each other, which my coworker described as too long and very awkward. Finally, the mother asked, "So?" My coworker started saying, "Well, could you?" And before she could finish the sentence, the single mother knocked her across the face with the hanger she was holding. So hard, it broke the hanger. My coworker just turned around and went to find our manager. She first encountered an off-duty police officer who worked security in the store and is a close friend of mine, and told him what had happened. He went with her to the manager. The manager went over to the mother, listened to her rant, apologized to her for the misunderstanding, and gave her a 10% discount for her troubles. My coworker was so stunned she couldn't even speak. Even the cop was just saying, "What the heck just happened?" The cop turned to my coworker and asked if she wanted to press charges. Before she could answer, the manager interrupted, saying that wouldn't be necessary. Meantime, all the other employees in the department are watching all this go down, and I had just walked back in for my break. I see my coworker has a huge mark across her face. My coworker told the cops she did in fact want to press charges. The manager told her she couldn't do that if she wanted to keep her job. She told him that was fine. She quit. The manager was still insistent that the mother not be troubled by all this. The cop said, "She could have put her eye out, and I am arresting her. If you don't like it, you can take it up with my commander." The entitled mother was still acting smug until she saw the cuffs. Then she started screaming the usual nonsense.
I'm gonna sue all of you. I'll have your badge. Do you know who I am? Etc.
No one but the manager cared, and she still went to jail. All of the other employees and customers who were watching clapped as she was being led out of the store in cuffs. The manager started in on the employees about how to correctly deal with situations like what had happened. We all looked at each other, and without saying a word, we all clocked out and left. All of us. Good luck running the entire department by yourself. We hung around our injured coworker until she was done with the police report and then took her to lunch. She said she had been planning to apply at a different store in the same mall anyway, but hadn't planned on quitting the way it happened and worried that Dillard's would give her a bad reference now. We convinced her to go to the other right then, injured face and all. She explained what happened to the manager there. She was hired on the spot and told they don't put up with crap like that. If a customer hits you, no matter who they think they are, charges will be filed and will be permanently banned from the store. I spoke to my cop friend a few days later, and he said the crazy woman nearly drove him insane with her screaming and threats on the way to jail, which wasn't close. After she saw that wasn't working, she started with pleading and bribery. He said he didn't think he had ever been so glad to hand someone off to booking. All this happened ages ago, and since that day, I've never stepped foot in a Dillard's.
Please come watch this video next. You will love it. And huge thank you to Marnie, our newest official channel member. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Join as a channel member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make any kind of video you would like us to, come visit us on Fiverr. Link pinned in the comments below.